7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning and welcome to the PROSTEP Tech Day, the meeting of the PROSTEP community. I'm so pleased that so many of you have made it today. This is the first time that we are holding the format online live. I can promise you it's worth taking part. It's very interactive, very interesting. We have a great deal prepared for you. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Julia Bauer. I am a TV and event host. I'll be guiding you through the sessions. This is the second session that will go from 11 till 12:30. We're going to be looking at PDF Generator 3D. Then we'll have another session following your lunch break from 2 p.m. to 3:30. There you can learn all there is to know about Product Suite OpenPDM. Of course, in every session, we have a very interesting client presentation. We also have an exclusive new product that we want to present today, a traceability solution called OpenCLM. I said interactive. You might wonder how. We obviously would like you to be able to exchange your ideas with our experts. Just look at your screen. You can ask questions. They'll then be sent to my iPad and I will pass them on to the speakers. You will get your answers. So there will be a Q&A session following the client presentation, but also one at the end of the session for all of the speakers. Moreover, if you'd like to continue to ask questions, then we have a networking opportunity during a team session. I will then send you a link for this at that point in time. You'll be sent on to that meeting. You might have missed the first session. Don't worry, we've recorded it. There'll be English subtitles and it will be available online. This session and the next session will be recorded. We obviously want to generate as much interest as possible. So that's all from me for now. Let's now have a look at the agenda and what's new at PROSTEP. I'm going to now hand over to someone who's much better equipped to tell you all about this. He has been in the company for 23 years and has headed the business unit products since 2012. Peter Pfalzgraf, welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome back to those of you who are here this morning. We're going to look at the agenda. We're now in the middle section, as Mrs. Bauer has already said. It's about 3D PDF, and we'd like to talk about the details of this agenda for this session. The Tech Day is generally the forum in which we present our solutions in detail. Our offers for solutions over the next 90 minutes is going to be about PDF Generator 3D and visualization solutions in general, as we call it. It's become much more in the meantime, of course. And subsequently, we'd like to give you some news about PROSTEP and, of course, also address the issue, what has actually changed in our 3D Generator PDF product since the last Tech Day. Some of you might have been at the last Tech Day, and you know that on the one hand we like to see what has happened, and then we cast an outlook towards the future. Next point at 11:25, approximately, that's what we had envisaged anyway, a presentation from one of our customers. That will be a recording again, but after that you will have the possibility to get in contact with Mr. Hieke from Siemens in a Q&A session. Mr. Hieke has already spoken at our Tech Day. This is about the use of 3D PDF in manufacturing at Siemens Large Drives. That's a division of Siemens. And he obviously has continued things, so it's quite interesting to see how these things develop once they're rolled out on our customers. Another pointer, we had actually recorded a second presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to show both of them today. That's a project with our customer Röchling. We did that with Systems. but we will present this online as well, so you could watch that as well if you want to. The next point would be highlights from the Poststep Lab. Just like in the last session as well, we will show you a few live demos and present topics that we are currently working on in our product development. And following on that, a preview for our new product, OpenCLM. That's top of the agenda for 2021, and today we're going to show you a first preview. Next year, of course, it will be a really hot issue, but you will already be able to see our presentation of our planning today. Last but not least, roadmap. That's always what we do in our Tech Day. We want to show you what we are specifically planning for the following year concerning new product releases, etc., and also illustrate a few issues that will accompany this product over the next few years. Q&A has already been mentioned. That's very important for us. We have one session right at the end of these 90 minutes. The last 10 minutes is normally what we plan, but there will be one after the presentation given by our customer, Mr. Hieke. But that would be specifically about Mr. Hieke answering questions to his presentation, and exactly the same way again. Right after the presentation, or after the 90-minute session, there will be a live chat. In a separate team session, our product manager, Timo Trautmann, will be available to address details or your specific questions. Right. A few general pieces of information about PROSTEP. Here you can see two pictures from last year, or actually this was our last Tech Day at the end of 2018, so it's actually 2 years ago. We met in real life in our neighborhood with our infrastructure partner, Darmstadt Rechnerzentrum, or DARTS. We were able to meet personally. This time everything is slightly different, but still we're trying to offer something very similar online. This was our 25-year birthday. We had that in our headquarters in Darmstadt with about 300 people. It was really a very nice event. And we're looking back now thinking, yeah, it was a great thing, but this year we're just going to have to make do with something else. PROSTEP, in the meantime now, we have about 280 people. Our portfolio goes beyond our product solutions as well. They're in the focus today in the Tech Day. But generally speaking, we're also active in PLM management and process consulting. That's a very important part of our business, consulting in the PLM sector in various fields. Here in the middle, these are our solution units. It's about individual customized software development, implementation, but then also the connection with our products, our PLM products, which you can see here with our logos at the bottom. A few bits of news, highlights from last year for you. If you haven't heard of this, in consulting last year, we reinforced our efforts significantly with CAG GmbH. We have now acquired the majority of the company. Philipp Hase and his about 35 people are very much focused on PLM VE as it's described here. So particularly things like ALM, application lifecycle management, together with PLM, all these things that have to do with mechatronics and software development. That's where the BHC team is very active in consulting, but of course they know all the tools, and that really helps us in our own product world, so to get support from them. Generally, we see ourselves to be a partner for digital transformation. Various topics, our white papers are highly interesting as well. You can download them from our homepage for things like Industry 4.0 in the context of PLM, or things like Digital Twin. You can see that on the right-hand side. They're available for downloading. And a further topic I would like to present to you in solutions implementation, solution development. In 2019 in Wrocław in Poland, we opened another software development site that once again expands our software development capacity, our know-how in the field. and our colleagues from Wrocław support us in customized software development in customer projects, but also in our own product development. And that brings us right back to this session. We have an overview of our product offers here: OpenDXM, GlobalX, OpenPDM, and in the next session, PDF Generator 3D. On the right, a preview showing our new solution, OpenCLM. But now in this session, we're going to focus on PDF Generator 3D. And back to Mrs. Bauer.
That sounds great. Thank you, Mr. Pfalzgraf. I think we should now speak a little bit about PDF Generator 3D. I have someone else on the stage now for you today. He's been working for the company since 1996 and is Head of Product Management. Welcome, Udo Hering.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. I'd like to welcome you all very much to our 3D PDF session. And I may give you a brief overview of where we were thinking about PDF Generator 3D the last 2 years, and in which direction things will probably continue. I just wanted to talk about that, Mrs. Bauer. As you all know, with PDF Generator 3D, we're very much from the engineering background, and primarily, we acted on behalf of engineering processes, but we found that with all the digitalization processes which we have in every company now, we spoke about that this morning already. Now we're talking about digitalization, so another major issue which concerns everybody here really. We have to continue developing in this direction. And about 2 years ago, I'm looking towards a product manager now, that should be about right. We started Service Concept Generator, and we also want all the downstream processes after engineering to be taken care of, processes and after sales, for instance, to provide information necessary there. Information has to come from specific sources, and these specific sources haven't changed, they've stayed. We're still talking about PLM, ERP systems, or other data sources in which this information in these source systems has to be managed and extracted from these source systems and then provided in an adequate form for the following users. In the downstream processes, it has to be converted, packaged adequately, and provided in bite-sized bits, basically. And for this, we have provided Service Content Generator, and with this solution, we can offer customized solutions to the requirements of a customer in after-sales, for instance. Things like spare parts catalogs can be provided, whether online or offline is another question. We still maintain the ability to provide things offline. We'll talk about news and online provision of such information as well. We offer that too, obviously. And beyond that, things like service can be handled very well. That means assembly, dismantling. These things are available online and offline. And further fields outside of automotive or manufacturing are facility management systems. There's a particular format called BIM. BIM, of course, we support that too. And in this field, we're quite active now in the meantime as well. So what has happened? Of course, due to new technology, there are quite powerful browsers, HTML5 web browsers, which allow us to offer 3D geometries, high performance, in combination with further information which is extracted from the respective backend systems, and that can be linked. They can be illustrated in a browser-friendly way, and a connection has to be made, the association between geometry and other metadata, parts list for instance, and that way the necessary use cases of the customers can be covered, for instance spare parts catalogs. And further, with this new browser technology, theoretically, we can offer these solutions on every mobile device, on every device really, because you have to be able to access the data using these technologies. That means you don't necessarily need a PDF format with Adobe Reader, which, as we know, is available on every computer as it's free of charge, but a browser is quite sufficient, like for instance Google Chrome or Firefox or others, in order to illustrate and process such information. And of course this solution, which we provide with this service content generator, can also be used for existing applications in a customer's web portal. That means you don't have to start from scratch. You can start on a brownfield site and add information that is needed in various points. You can see the red logo in the middle, our PDF Generator 3D, which extracts data on PDM basis from the back end, packs it in the right formats, and at the end, as already heard, presents it in a way it is needed on the other side with the recipient. That's all I have to say. Just very briefly, back to the overview. Where are we? Where do we want to go? How will things develop? And more details about new functions. My colleague will report about that later. Now back to Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you. We're interested to see how all this develops. In the meantime, let's ask Mr. Pfalzgraf what the current issues around PDF are.
We have just heard that we do much more than just PDF generation. In the meantime now, we do things like web visualization, also based on HTML5, other standards. These are the classic topics we have to deal with at the moment. You can just use a standard browser, but nevertheless, PDF is an important issue, particularly when you're talking about things like documentation, archiving data. They have to be stored in a legally correct form, and I'll talk about what has happened in the last few years quite a lot. You can see the logo, 3D PDF Consortium. PROSTEP was in it right from the beginning, a founding member in the context of PDF standardization. In the meantime, there's a collaboration going on with the PDF Association, which is right in this standardization issue, and particular PDF standards were continued quite significantly. We've reported about other standards like PDF-E for engineering. Now, PDF-A for archiving has been decided to be continued and extended so that you can really archive engineering data within it. You can see here now the new PDF-A4 specification. That has been broken down into PDF-A4F, where only embedded files can be attached. To really use a PDF container, Timo Krautmann will talk about what it means to have a PDF container later on. But very important, this second format, PDF-A4E, there you have the possibility to integrate 3D data. It says JavaScript here. Script, that's important because behavior of these data in connection with metadata can be reflected. And you can really cover PDF documents which can be filed. So that's the international standard, DIS, Draft International Standard, and we expect that to be an ISO standard over the next 2 years. In the middle, that's also very interesting, new things that have been added. At the moment, they're being discussed quite intensively, further 3D formats being integrated in PDF. 3D formats as an alternative format, which that's PCU 3D if you know about it, otherwise that doesn't need to interest you all that much. But also STEP AP242 Prior 1 should be integrated. That's highly interesting for companies already working with STEP today. There, It's being debated at the moment, and the intention is to integrate that in the standardization process next year. There's another topic, formats like GLTF and JT, which are also discussed in prior to. Could be that that develops further. It's different from attaching a step file in the PDF file, then it's an embedded step file, but this would really be a native step file which you can visualize in PDF. It's coming up, but it's still a matter to be discussed. But I just wanted to point out that that is what's happening now. DDP, Digital Data Package, that is an initiative in the PostStep IVIB Association. We're also active in the CLM groups here. We'll talk about that later. It's about defining data exchange formats which support you in this digital thread. So that means continuity has to be guaranteed throughout a company, digitally speaking, and also additional functions can be reflected in such a format so that data content can be linked and communicated. And here, we're in the phase of thinking of concepts until the end of 2020 and then offer demos for next year, and we believe that we will take part in this with our 3D generator solution. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That sounds great. All good things come in three, and I have a third question for Mr. Herring. Which customers use this content generator service?
This is about why I can answer that question. There are a whole lot of customers. I've picked out 3 examples quite deliberately from different customers, different industries, with different use cases. Let's start with the Meyerwerft. This is a customer that most of you should know. Maybe some of you have already had the pleasure to spend time on one of these rather luxurious cruise ships in the Mediterranean, or perhaps even in the Pacific. Meyerwerft, the Meyer docks, before they float their boats, have to have them certified. There's a certifying authority like Germania Lloyd and others. And before, they used endlessly large bits of paper. They had to present their design documents, and they went through these paper documents one by one until they noticed that using PDF technology, also in context with the 3D illustration, it'd be much simpler and much faster. That means a process was established based on our Adobe, or actually 3D PDF generator technology, so that this paper-based process could be merged or replaced by a paperless process. And for that data taken from CATIA V4, which Meyerwerft still uses partly, quite astonishing really, but the data is extracted and accordingly merged, and as you can see in this graphic illustration down at the bottom, it's color-coded, which makes it much easier for the examiner to see the different parts, the different material thicknesses, mainly steel, and based on that then he can offer his assessment. A very nice example of how PDF can support a paperless process. Here we've got a second example, Atotech, a leading global manufacturer of coating machines in galvanization, but they further development in coatings with electronics. And there the requirement was to provide a customer with a spare parts catalogue the simplest way possible, and there shouldn't be too many resulting errors in ordering. That means there we established a PDF process which takes its information from an SAP system but also further sources, and this information is provided in a PDF, also using JT formats. And you can see a nice example down the bottom on the left. You can see a table, even with a shopping cart. It's a PDF container with additional information which the customer can download, and he can navigate his way through it very nicely, select a number, and then he'd get a 3D model, and based on that, he can trigger his ordering process. That means it's a very simple application. The customer doesn't need anything else but an Adobe Reader. He can open this package and get additional information from the added documents, attached documents, trigger his ordering process, and of course it all has the advantage that the order comes in a way that it can be processed directly without any checks and any additional work that has to be done, and reduces errors that way. A third example, something totally different from a totally different industry. Perhaps some of you have something like that in their mouth. It's an implant from Nobel Biocare. We've been working with them since 2013, as it says here. They started using PDF technology to create such 3D PDF documents with our technology. Nobel Biocare is one of the largest implant manufacturers in the world, and obviously they have to provide information to their dentists, and they do that based on a 3D scanning system, which is visualized here accordingly. So this information was sent as a 3D PDF document to the dentist, who then assesses it and passes it on. This has now been continued. That means no PDF document is necessary any longer. Why not? Because quite a lot has changed with dentists particularly. They're using devices. Most of you know this as a smartphone. Could be an iPhone or an iPad, for instance. And obviously a dentist doesn't want to sit in front of a PC. He wants to see these things directly on his mobile device. What Nobel Biocare has sent me, is that okay? And based on a hard HTML5 file, a regular browser, you can open this document, check it, release it, and therefore, and that way, pass on the order. So all this is developing quite vigorously, and Timo Trautmann will have further information later. Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you. I think so too. A lot has been done in 3D, particularly since the last time that you came together 2 years ago at the same event. So what has happened? We will now hear about this from the person responsible for this area at PROSTEP. But he has also done many other things in the past. He has worked in product management and PDM. Timo Trautmann, over to you.
Thank you very much from my side as well. This is the first time. Today we're going to see 2 or 3 times more as well. Since the last Tech Day, that's about 2 years ago, quite a few releases have been let out. Though we're not entirely linear, we don't have a regular release cycle. We don't offer one every half year, for instance. We have a very agile process, and this agile process allows us to react to CAD system releases from CAD manufacturers or follow customer requirements much more closely. A very important point, you can see this on the slide as well, is that with each new release we also support the main CAD systems of the main CAD manufacturers. 9.3, we have CATIA 5.6 2020. That's the version which is going to be in operation for larger automotive manufacturer. We're supporting that today already with conversions, so our customers can be sure that we will continue to support the up-to-date versions. That's also true for all the other CAD systems. For instance, Creo 7 is new on the list, or NX 1926. But you never know there, is that really the most recent update or not, because Siemens also runs a very agile process. Besides all the standard maintenance processes supporting the new versions, with each release we've also integrated a new highlight feature. I've tried to illustrate that as well. For instance, in 9.0 we had a function to remove inner geometry. That's very important for after-sales processes. In version 1, we had a new algorithm, 9.2 and 9.3. Focus very much on 3D annotations. On the other hand, on one hand, things like server-sided rendering. On the other hand, now with Z9.3, particularly in Creo, we have new functions like assembly level operations. So it doesn't get too dry. I've picked two topics which were quite important from our customer's point of view from the last 2 years. That's hollowing on the one hand. Hollowing means you've got to imagine you're in after sales and you are meant to receive a data set from engineering which you can publish in a spare parts catalog. Engineering would say, oh my goodness, no, we can't do that at all. Far too much know-how of ours contained therein. We've got to do something. Now you want to offer a gearbox as a spare part, but you don't want the person who receives the spare parts catalog to know what's in your gear. So therefore we have developed a function which fully automatically merges assemblies in individual bodies and all the inside invisible surfaces are removed. That's got huge advantages in performance. I think you can imagine that. If instead of 1,000 parts only have one, it's much faster than visualizing 1,000 parts. On the other hand, of course, you've got a protection of your know-how, which shouldn't be underestimated here, which just makes sure that your engineering know-how stays within the company and does not leave the company. What's very important is that all of these things are illustrated in PDF, but as our colleagues have just said, we can do that for JT and step files as well. That means we can generate a JT file just the same, which would only have the cover geometry. Another important point for our customers is that we support other end devices. PDF is still a very important topic, particularly in documentation, but there are a whole lot of new applications, for instance, spare part catalogs, for instance, web-based visualization of PDM data, but also things like assembly and disassembly. And we have a specific solution with our web-based spare parts catalog, which allows you to publish things very simply, either according to PDF or HTML. The way to get there is identical in both cases, but we'll get back to that after the lab session. That's all I have to say. I think we can continue now.
Thank you. We can. We will move on immediately. So now it is time for everyone watching online to get involved. We will have a client presentation now that is pre-recorded. Afterwards, the client will join the meeting live, and I will then put your questions to him. So anyone with a question or who would like some more information, please go to the website and use the space provided. Hopefully we can then hold a lively Q&A session afterwards. So who is this client? I'm delighted to be able to introduce him. He comes from Siemens Large Drive Applications. He is an IT manager and has been responsible for a variety of projects for over 10 years. He is now going to talk to us about the manufacturing process. I'm very excited to see what he has to say. Andre Hieke.
Good morning. My name is Andre Hieke, and I work for Siemens AG as an IT project manager. And I would like to tell you about how we use 3D PDF in manufacturing. I won't introduce Siemens at this point. I would just like to tell you briefly what Siemens LDA is. It's part of the Siemens Group. We produce high voltage motors, high voltage rectifiers in several sites in the world. Our products are characterized by them being highly complex on the one hand, but on the other hand, they also offer a huge number of variants. In our company, we have an average lot size of about 1.2. That means we have high requirements towards variants in manufacturing, but also in sales. Last year, or 2 years ago actually, already had the opportunity to present this in more detail, what that means for us. Perhaps there's somebody who can still remember that, had presented 3D PDF in sales and after sales. It was precisely about the topic, how we can cope with this high variance in product documentation. It was about how 3D PDF was used in the project and part of the success of the project. I said that the experience that we had gained in this project with Poststep and 3D PDF can now be used for internal applications. That means in manufacturing itself. And that's exactly the presentation which I want to continue today. It's basically a continuation of what we started 2 years ago. We're currently using the 3D PDF in sales and after sales, but also in future for the joinless processes. A quick glance at the current situation. We have launched tentative attempts to switch to a drawingless change. That means we don't use drawings anymore, but JT in all areas of manufacturing and in the following processes. There's a proof of concepts 2 years ago for select part of manufacturing. That was housing manufacturing in our case. We said in NX, create the PMI views, and in future, JT would be used on site instead of a drawing. JTs are generated in the release process and then distributed in our team center. We've got them in the release process. The JT is distributed using SAP, and we use a so-called output management system, which is installed on the workstation itself for a particular ticket, and using this output management system, the worker is provided with JT at his workplace. The process worked. That was never a major problem. Chose the JT. The big problem, though, but on the one hand, the quality of the JT was set very low. Has to do with release processes in the team center which we could not handle. There are cuts of a few millimeters in housings which are several meters large. That was simply something we could not illustrate. You just couldn't see it. And all these attributes were not entirely visible. They were hidden in the JT's characteristics. If you know about JT2Go, then you know about this. Use the right mouse button quite a lot, and we've got to say that our workplaces have got touch screens, and it was simply not possible. You can't tell people to take their gloves off and go back to the computer to play with it. In high capacity, we also had second sources, and here we had problems. I've got a JT, and they simply didn't understand what to do with it. That means on the paper, these drawingless processes were established. There were savings, of course. But that did not generate any advantages, really. And the whole process continues. It's about quality control. We tried to have a look and see how we could improve all of this to make things easier for our workers in the factories. And we did have this CAD for Sales project, which we introduced quite successfully using PDF. With Rulestream and NX, we have the possibility to generate data. You see, one of the formats was 3D PDF, and it was accepted very well both by customers and also the engineers in our own processes. And the idea was just to take this existing infrastructure and do the same thing we did in this project, generating PDFs. The first step was that we got together with the factory workers, the colleagues who were working in the factories at these workplaces, and we thought about which functions they need from JT, or what was on the drawing before, and generated a template, just self-explanatory, with touchscreen capability, and we integrated a few functions. We used typical buttons, and for integrating 3D comments, you have the possibility to illustrate a barcode for the measurement machines so they can be measured directly, and similar things. And we also agreed on all these things with the suppliers. Looking at the process, that was a very small problem. It's an output management system. And should there be a JT at each workplace, the 3D PDF is generated using the PROSTEP PDF generator. We've defined a small workflow. Of course, we need a VPN access for this cloud, and the OMS had to be expanded accordingly. What's special about this project is that in a very, very short time, from the first ideas to the implementation of the templates, it really only took a few weeks, and I think half of the time the VPN tunnel was in the cloud. And we've been using this since 2019 for our housing manufacturing. The advantages: we're able to implement a lot of things that you couldn't do JT. We've got a default view we defined, PMI with the heads, got a symbol, just set as default. The other thing is we can increase the level of detail during generation. We're able to roll it out without any training. All you need is a JT and a PDF, and open the PDF, and you've got the interface and can operate it directly. And what's very important is we can also support the follow-up processes, incoming goods, etc. And we can pass it on to our suppliers directly. That's what we did. What we're currently doing is that we're going to roll this out for further workplaces. in Nuremberg, we want to add a shaft manufacturing and also in other plants, and we will also support other applications. At the moment, it's already running. We've done quite a lot. I can show you what it looks like at the moment. This process has been set up in such a way in the meantime it runs in a PDF generator. You can add several parameters and you can control the video output. So there are several templates for various manufacturing sites, for various workplaces, and they all differ in detail. One's an assembly, some have HTML5 output, etc. And we can always cover that with the same process, basically. We just have to replace a few parameters in the IT process. So that's one of the major points of success we've seen at the moment. That with the PROSTEP Generator 3D, we can support these things very, very simply. And we can have the template translated into English. Just in 1 or 2 days, it can be working again. And that was the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and your patience. And if you have any questions, I'd be very willing to answer them in our live session right away.
A fascinating presentation, very insightful. Thank you for the recording and thank you for being here in person today. We are so pleased to be able to see you here, albeit on a monitor. I'm sure you've guessed we have a number of questions for you. I'll get started and work through from top to bottom. Someone has written more of a comment, but I'll pass it on anyway. Interesting that the client integrated the trigger in pluses. I didn't know that. Great. I'm sure you'd like to comment on this.
Yes. We use that as an option to be able to integrate lots of things as a customized version. That's just what we did.
Exactly, and that seems to be a success. We now have a real question for you. How were you able to create better quality 3D PDFs on the basis of poor quality GTs?
You can set that in the PDF generator. Mr. Taufmann can probably say more about that, but it's very simple. If you take the information of the JTs and just extrapolate, that's just a setting in a PDF generator.
I'll probably pass this on to him when we speak to him later. Thank you. I have another question. How long did it take for employees working in manufacturing to be able to go paperless?
That's a very nice question. Of course, they only work paperlessly with these new products or new machines, a new set of machines, and for them, they work paperlessly. And for them, the switch has just been turned, and from one day to the next, there are no drawings generated anymore. Yea, we're always in a fortunate or unfortunate situation, whichever way you want to see it, that our machines are manufactured for 20, 30 years. That means you will need drawings of old products for a long time, but for new things that was decided from one day to the next.
Well, if everyone is ready for digitalization, then it's not a problem. Thank you. We've spoken a lot about what's possible, but one viewer is interested in what isn't possible. Are there any requirements which you haven't yet managed to implement using 3D PDF?
I can't think of anything for this application right away. Of course, there are always wishes for extension, but we're talking about very small details here. Specific things being incorporated or following a specific logic which we cannot implement. But the application cases we have were selected in a way to make them very flexible. The worker in a factory doesn't want very much. He just wants to see his 3D model and perhaps rotate it a little bit and see the views. He doesn't want any more than that.
Everything is possible, that's good news. One last question for you. To what extent is the 3DF PDF solution accepted in manufacturing as opposed to 2D drawings or JT?
That's a very good question. Let's start with the comparison with JT. The acceptance is really very high. Introduction of drawing this processes with JT simply didn't work. Our colleagues just didn't cope with that. And this now is a way they can actually work. In comparison with 2D, that's another thing. A lot of people still want to see it on print. We've got to say that we have very large models. The shaft is several meters, and of course I can't print that on A0 in the screen. So I had to scroll a lot back and forth. That's really something that has to do with the follow-up processes. In preparation for the work, people really love 3D.
A great conclusion, Mr. Heap. Thank you for the recording and for being here live today. All the best for the future. Thank you. Thank you. So back to our studio. I would like to take the opportunity to make one brief remark here. We were asked whether we are intending to make the presentations available after the conference. This is planned. You will get the recordings of all 3 sessions, including this one, and the presentations are part of this. Should you want to have the presentations individually, you can approach the respective colleagues at the PROSTEP and they'll be passed on to you. I'd now like to continue with 2 buzzwords. Firstly, spare parts catalog, creator, and 3D content collaboration space. These are very long words, but major highlights, and come from the ProStep Lab. What does this mean? Why is it relevant to you? Tima Trautmann is here to explain.
Thank you. Now back to the second session out of the lab. It's going to take a little bit more than it did before, but I've got more to tell you. Before we start with the specifics, there are 2 small points I might have to add, or say a little bit more about it. What is PDF Generator 3D actually? In the meantime, it's no longer just a pure PDF generator, it's a modular converting solution. That means we have a whole lot of different formats, at the moment about 30, and up to 10 different output formats. And PDF is of course still our most important output format, in parallel HTML5. But we do support far more formats in our customer process. Modular, our software is modular because we want our software to be adapted to your processes, not the other way around. We're not introducing SAP, we're providing a conversion solution which is meant to fulfill specifically your requirements and manage your data, and definitely not generate a new data silo. We use existing data, publish that in document format, and then you can just use your data. So there are no further requirements anymore, neither of PDF nor HTML. How do we do that? Generally, you can imagine we've got a whole lot of elements. You know this PDM puzzle, I could have taken that as well, but I thought the Rubik's Cube PDF picture would be much more suitable for PDF Generator 3D. We have a lot of input connectors on one hand. This morning, you heard this already. We have various CAD systems we support, and with our OpenPDM technology, we also have access to all the PDM PLM systems in the market. We have access to SAP, but we can also just import data from an Excel spreadsheet. Importing data from an Excel spreadsheet is something that is commonly done. We have a lot of customers who, without Excel, simply can't build machines or cars. It's just not possible. So accordingly, we utilize such Excel files in a combined view in a PDF document or an HTML page. On the other hand, we've got our publishing tools, our output functions. On the one hand, we've got a 3D output function, PDF, HTML, VLMF, printing processes, STEP or JT, but we also have the possibility to generate 2D images. That means if you still want to support a printing process today, then we are able to generate high-resolution 2D views from your 3D models. Last but not least, and I think this is really our USP, we have significant pre- and post-processing options. That means if you address us with a requirement which we have never implemented in our product so far, then the probability is relatively high that we will be able to do it without changing the product, because we can adapt our product quite significantly and therefore meet the requirements of your process. Now, if we just reflect this in examples, I've picked out a few examples which we've been publishing for some time already and using for some time, but nevertheless, we still continue to develop them. We constantly do new things also with our spare parts catalog generator to support new applications, new systems, also perhaps to generate different types of catalogs. The big advantage of our spare parts catalog generator is that it's a 100% automated solution. That means the document producer presses the button or release, waits for a quarter of an hour, and then the catalog has been generated for the whole system. That might sound like something some of you might not believe us. That's why we've got a customer statement below. We've got one customer who really only took 7 working days active research in order to compile a catalog. He already had a spare parts catalog solution in his house. He was not on a greenfield site, that means. And together with him, we introduced automation. And this automation means it doesn't need 7 days, but only half a day. And this half a day is mainly data quality checking. Are the data from the ERP system complete? Have the data been comprehensively imported? A further advantage is you have no client. It's a zero client solution, because we either produce PDF or HTML. On the one hand, you only use Adobe Reader. On the other, you use any web browser, not just on a desktop, but also on a mobile device. That means on Safari, on an iPad, it will work just like on the Windows or Google Chrome. Explorer 9, we don't support that anymore, by the way, just in case that question pops up. Another important point, change reporting. You've got to imagine you release a new set of data. Now, the person who assesses the set of data wants to know the difference. The difference can either be geometrical. You might have drilled a new hole, or you might have adapted a surface somehow, but BOMs or attributes might be even more important, or scaling. So that means changes to this parts list can be presented directly as changed. On the other hand, we can illustrate directly when a tolerance and measurements have changed, and the user can see that at first glance. You've got a link between the table and 3D. That's also one of the essential aspects which we have in PDF, of course. Connection between 3D and non-3D information. That's in use of many customers, and if you're interested, please let us know. And now, our newest solution, which works on PDF Generator basis, our 3D content collaboration space or portal. We haven't got a final name for it yet. That's why we're still trying things out. It's a website or a server which you can publish your data on. It examines access rights, and the whole thing is presented in a web browser, and the user in the web browser can still comment, but he can also send a change request directly in the web browser. And I'm going to show you a live demo right away, but before we get to the live demo, I've also recorded access on iPad, and we're going to show you this video right away. In this demo, I'm going to show our 3D content collaboration portal being used on iPad Pro from 2017. That means it's not the most recent device, it's slightly older already, but you will see that nevertheless the performance is still very, very good. I've got the link to our Content Collaboration portal on the screen. I can open the portal right away. Got to log in for the demo. I'll use a demo user. That means I'm Christian Adam. To log in, the password is not a problem, it's just a demo system, which you would have access to anyway. You can see I'm logged into the system. I can see all the 3D models that I have access to. Dedicated access control to the 3D models. I can choose one of these models. Here, the drill is loaded, and accordingly I've got a 3D geometry in the iPad. I can select parts, isolate geometry. Got the isolated geometry, but instead of navigating geometry, I can access the model BOM. I've got access to the different views in the CAD system. I can select different views. I've got access to the model structure, and here, for instance, I can isolate something, the entire engine at this point. These are the standard 3D interaction functions, which we have on the web browser on a PC, but also on a telephone or on an iPad. We don't only have a 3D viewing portal, it's also a collaboration portal. That means I can call up some collaboration functions. I've got an overview of all the change wishes, change requests which have been generated. I can switch to different views. Got a textual description of what this person who generated this change request has filed. I've got a 3D representation the person saw at this time when this view was generated. But when the person added comments, then I can also see that here in this model. In preparation for the Tech Day, we'll just do this with another model. I've got the torque converter here. At the moment, no comments. I deleted the respective data on the server. Now I'll go along and add a comment. For instance, to begin with, I'll isolate the inside part. Then I've got the possibility to go here and take a pen and say OK. Want to draw a circle around it. I can do the whole thing with pure text as well. I've got the possibility to write down the text. That means I can add a comment directly on the 3D geometry. That's a comment functionality. What we also have is an explicit change request being generated. We can do that with this plus button at the top here. The geometry as it was to be seen at the time when I wanted to generate the change request can be seen. I can add something to the description here. Here we need to change something. In the future version, I'll be able to upload a picture. You've got to imagine you're standing in front of a machine and want to upload a change request or another pointer. Then you want to see the 3D geometry in combination with your description and a picture uploaded on the server so that it's available for others. I'm just going to confirm this. And when I look at these comments, I can see a new comment has been generated by Christian Adam on the 13th of November 2020. I can see the comment text, and I've got a field here in which I can respond to such a comment. The whole thing saved, so that means if I leave it all and skip back, then I've got the possibility to go back to the respective comment. I can see the 3D geometry of all the 3D comments, but again for the 2D comments or the changes. Now, everything else I'll show you live from the Tech Day from my workplace. I'll answer this comment perhaps, and I might show you a few more functions from the 3D concept text. Okay, great. Now we're back live. You can see that I'm logged into the same portal as we've just seen on the video. I hope nobody tried to leave or add new comments, otherwise, well, we'll see that right away. It's a live system, but that's a risk I was willing to take. I'll go back to the torque converter. You've just seen that. On my Windows computer, you can see I can turn, rotate it exactly as I did before. Now I'm going to open the whole thing, and then I can see the comment which Christian Adam had generated. I am logged in as a different user now, so in this white field I can respond to this comment. Typing and speaking at the same time is a bit difficult. Now I can save this comment. So I've got a really slim collaboration functionality. If you know that in PDF, then you're probably going to think this is quite familiar. There also you have these functions, and we thought it was quite a useful function which you want to use in a web browser or a portal as well, to be able to interact with a customer or partners or whoever. Unfortunately, time has lapsed quite significantly already, so I'll just say I'll show you more of the 3D functions later on in my team session. I'll show you the last slide and then come to an end of the current presentation. This is really just a summary. What we do with 3D PDF, we convert or combine, link and visualize information in a very simple way. That means you don't need any specific client to use the whole thing. And these are things which we don't only do in the spare parts catalog, not just in processes in the technical data package. These are things that we do in the context of OpenCLM as well. That's all I wanted to say in my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Mrs. Bauer.
Back to me. Thank you, Mr. Trautmann. It's incredibly impressive that so many things are possible. Quite honestly, I did like the purple bottle, but I imagine it's not so much about the colour. Great. And now it's a moment you've all been waiting for. I already told you that we'll be presenting a completely new product today, and we finally got to that point. What's it all about? The idea is traceability, the ability to improve traceability of particularly complex manufacturing processes, for example. For this purpose, there's a new product, OpenCLM. This will be presented to you by someone who is also new, who you'll probably meet for the first time today. He came from Franconia to Darmstadt. He used to work for the car manufacturer Schaeffler. Now he is here, responsible for the OpenCLM product. I look forward to hearing what Fabrice Mogonem has to say.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Welcome to this second round. I would like to show you our new OpenCLM solution. As you can see in a moment, OpenCLM is not just a solution which will help you to manage your projects better and make your products more mature. It's also a significant element in your digitalization strategy. You'll hear about that after a brief introduction about OpenCLM. For you, this is certainly not new, that the environment we're working in today is in constant change. What is new is the frequency and the unforeseeability with which changes happen today and also in future. The COVID-19 pandemic is one example. What that teaches us is that one single event can wreak havoc with our outlook and planning. We don't have a crystal ball yet. There are other possibilities we can make use of, and we believe that is flexibility. Companies have to become more flexible in future. Not just become more flexible, we have to increase our potential for innovation, reduce costs, and also reduce our risks. And these opportunities have to be followed up on more stringently in future. In lifting potential, we can see great potential in insufficient processes and also in IT archiving and insufficient integration of IT solutions is where we see a lot of potential for you to lift. And there are numbers to back that up. In the left-hand column, you can see that 61% of workers' time is dedicated to shadow work. And if you look at that in more detail, 22% of these 61% is time spent gathering information. This is a phenomenon which is certainly not new to you. There are many companies that have a job, document hunter. That means the document hunters do nothing else but look for documents. To specify that, when you hire 5 people today, then one of those people will only be occupied with retrieving, hunting information. And this potential you can exploit better in future. In the second column, there are specific numbers in US dollars. In the US alone, every year 25 billion US dollars is spent on warranty claims. For the automotive industry, that's 9 billion in total, 9 billion US dollars only for warranty claims. And if you look behind the scenes, then you can see that a large share of these numbers are due to lack of compliance requirements. And that is also due to insufficient transparency in processes and also the data. So that is why we at PROSTEP see a solution in offering a future solution which enables generating documents or data on the fly, or the compliance requirements can be dealt with that way. How many meetings could you save, for instance, if you had the possibility to retrieve all the data for your development of products by pressing a button? There are people working beyond the boundaries of tools to live up to these requirements, only have Excel as a kludge solution in order to close the gaps in processes. How would it be for them if they had the possibility, with a new solution that works throughout tools, throughout domains, to offer this traceability? And a further example, at the end of the development, you have to release a product. How much more secure would you feel in such a release if you had the possibility that all reports, all compliance status reports would be available to you by pressing a button? Or if you're preparing an audit, if you had all this information you needed available at your fingertips to pass this audit. These are just a few examples. I'm sure you can think of some others yourself. We want to lift potential with this solution, OpenCLM, this way. Now we can see, as our manufacturing is very well digitalized now in Industry 4.0, in future we can see work management and also traceability compliance management 4.0. There's further elements to work on in digitalization, and that's where we want to position our new solution, OpenCLM, because we have 25 years of expertise in PLM consulting, PLM solution development, and we want specifically this expertise to be orchestrated, bundled in order to provide such a solution. But you can see we're in this second session, Product Generator 3D. You can see what options we'll have in the future with OpenCLM. We'll be able to present more than just geometry data. We can do much more early stage BSSE. With OpenCLM, we can consolidate all of these things, freezing, baselining, and using a PDF generator 3D, roll it out in standardized formats. There's also the possibility to publish things in HTML, and that in combination with our collaboration solution Global X that supports collaboration with our partners or collaboration with customers in future. And later on, the third session, we'll talk a bit more in detail about OpenPDM. That's a cornerstone for OpenCLM because compatibility boundaries have to be integrated in this way, just to give you the feeling that you're working in an integrated world in which everything is accessible and you don't have to go looking for information or documents anymore. Some people will ask themselves a question whether OpenCLM is a PDM solution. Of course not. From our point of view, there are enough PDM solutions on the market. That means we are positioning OpenCLM as an integration of the existing tool landscape, plus further add-ons, of course, and further functionalities, like, for instance, this traceability baselining beyond domain and tool boundaries. And in OpenCLM, we have put a lot of value on usability. I had great problems projects with customers. Very often that is neglected, and I want this experience to enter OpenCLM, and I'm very happy to be given the necessary support for that, because the world has no need for bad tools. With OpenCLM, we want to set a completely new bar, and I would also personally back that. In this constellation of different architectural options, OpenCLM means you feel better in a mixed landscape. And you have the possibility to cover the whole bandwidth for OpenCLM, or OpenCLM as navigator, various tracing systems. And in these traces, we'll see what has been specifically done by the user, or traces which have been achieved through intelligent research. Just to give you a better overview, starting from requirement data to the test results, you know exactly what is your coverage throughout all these domains. These are just examples, more of course later, but I'm going to give you an outlook right away. When will you get OpenCLM? OpenCLM is modular. That means there are already quite a lot of modules which have been developed today, and with different customers, we're active in various POC projects, and based on these projects, or these modules, we're carrying out initial tests to see how certain domain tools can be integrated. As an example, NASA. In NASA, for instance, with OpenPDM connectivity solution, we've built a bridge between Doors, Magic Draw, and Windchill, which enables imaginary traces throughout these three systems. And that's just a small step, of course, then to go on from there when it's about navigating these traces and visualize them with OpenCLM. Of course, in OpenCLM, you can add further traces. What you can see here now is our roadmap. As a finished solution, OpenCLM will be put on the market in July 21, but in January 21 will be the first demo. And the first demo, I would like to start discussing that with you together with our colleagues, so that we can discuss the relevant applications together with your experts, of course, so that the path for such a CLM solution can be paved properly. That's basically what I have for you today, and in 10 minutes I wanted to present the basic information you need to know. There's much more to say about it, but there'll be future sessions about this. Back to you, Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Nem. That was very informative. I'm sure you have many questions. If that's the case, please use the area provided on your screen to type your question. They will then be passed on to us. Following the next section, we will then start the Q&A session, and then we can get into your questions with the speakers. Now, what can we take away from this session? Well, the 3D PDF generator can already do a great deal, but new functions will be added as well. For what these are and when they'll be introduced, in other words, the roadmap, I'd like to hand over to Timo Trautmann.
Thank you. The roadmap for PDF Generator 3D. Now, you saw before that we don't have an absolutely clear release cycle. That means I cannot tell you what we're going to be doing in half a year or in a year from now, or what specific features will be available. What we always do, though, is that we develop the necessary CAD readers so that they can support the current systems. What we can tell you quite specifically, though, is that version 10.0 PDF Generator 3D will be released this year in December. That's got a few updated CAD readers, or new CAD formats, There are some PMI features we support, particularly one of the big, larger CAD systems, and we also have a significant improvement in performance concerning HTML5 viewing. So you can upgrade larger models in the browser as you can today. 10.1, I'd cautiously predict that the second quarter of 2021 that will contain the content collaboration space. That, of course, will have CAD format updates, and what will definitely be with us next year, for the whole of next year, is STEP AP242 as 3D data stream, because we really see that as a great opportunity to continue to promote the STEP format as a PDF. You've just got to imagine that worldwide, on every desktop computer, there'll be a STEP view of OpenReader. That obviously is a function that STEP makers have been dreaming of for 20 years, and at this point, out of the box, you'd have that available for Adobe Reader. Otherwise, of course, we're open for ideas, change requests, new ideas, further extensions. Just approach us. We're quite open-minded. We'll listen to your ideas, and I think together we'll find a good solution. I just have one small outlook now for our lab. That's something that's a bit further down the road. Here we went along and took our viewing solution. I'll just see if our film will start. Just want to see whether our viewing solution connected with an IoT solution in the Mars rover, so a connection with the virtual road and the physical world, and that's something we're working on as well. That's a bit far removed from productive use though. We don't have a product at this point, but we certainly are able to support whole processes. Now you can imagine that having this in a spare parts catalogue, for instance, on the other hand, I'm sure you have far more ideas how you could use it than I can. So once again the offer, please approach me and I'm sure that together we can find a solution. That was our outlook. I think that's all I have to say. Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you. You're obviously not excused quite yet, as I think we have a few questions for you. Afterwards, we'll then have the 60-minute info session. However, the first question is not for Mr. Troutman, but for Mr. Mogonem. The question is, to what extent are OpenPDM and OpenCLM linked?
That's a very good question. You have seen OpenCLM is based on integration connectivity of OpenPDM. We want these system worlds to be integrated, and OpenPDM offers extra value, added value, because of added features, new functions, also PDM capability. That's basically our architecture, and we base everything on OpenPDM at this point.
Wonderful, a clear response. We'll stay with Mr. Mogonem with the question, what partnerships or interfaces exist around OpenCLM?
We want to cover the entire process chain in development. That means ALM, PDM, model-based development. That means solutions for system modulation. We're starting with that with the first release, and we're going to continue towards MP and also IoT. That's what's planned for the next steps in development.
Let's go into a little bit more depth here. Somebody's interested to find out which technology is behind the CLM concept.
We use different technologies. We can also use OSLC as a new technology. We're currently doing that in our OSCs, which we carry out. But next to OSLC, OSLC does not cover all the application cases you need for complete integration. We still see the necessity to use classic OpenPDM connectors, but that just to serve a few further reaching use cases, but we have these technologies in use today already, and we base everything in OpenCDM on that.
Thank you. Those are all the questions for Mr. Mogonem. Moving on to Mr. Troutman. How can the change request function in the 3D content portal be integrated into the internal change process?
That can be done quite simply with the use of OpenPDM. In two projects we're currently thinking about, 3D data to be published to a PDM system through OpenPDM in our content collaboration portal. And from there, we have the possibility to play back this information to OpenPDM to the PDM or PLM system.
Thank you. Now I'll need a few figures. Someone would like to know what the spare part catalog solution costs.
The spare parts catalog system starts at about €40,000. That's a single site solution, but at that price it will be in productive use.
That's nice and clear. Now on to participation. Is it possible to participate in the PDF working group?
That would be a question of Mr. Falsgaard probably, but he's not here unfortunately, but I can answer it nevertheless. The PDF work group is definitely very happy about anybody who wants to let his experience play into it. So as a system vendor, for the actual manufacturers of these solutions, on the other hand there's a forum for users in which there are many companies, unfortunately exclusively American companies at the moment, and of course we would be very happy if we get some customers from Germany or Europe.
So even at times like these, working groups are possible. That's good news. Another question, one customer writes, we have very large 3D models. Can the browser display these?
I would just say yes. It just depends on how big your models are, but what I've seen, what we have visualized in the web browser, that was a whole subway station from Hong Kong. That was illustrated in a very highly performant way. If your data is larger than the subway station, then we'd have to start thinking about breaking it down perhaps, and perhaps implementing a more adapted navigation.
So I imagine that's not someone manufacturing the purple bottle. One last question for Mr. Troutman. Is the intention to offer the collaboration portal as a service?
We don't know that yet. With Global X SaaS, we have an offer in which data exchange can really be offered as a service. In what way, to extent that really makes sense in content collaboration portal, we don't know yet. At the moment, it's planned as an on-premise solution. If there were customers who say we want to run this as a service, then we could host that for a customer. That would be an exclusive hosting in our data center supplier, or Google or Amazon. On the other hand, something like that could also be offered as a pure cloud solution. But we haven't decided on that yet, and I think that at the next TECHDAY we'll definitely be able to report on that.
That sounds good. You will have to continue, I'm afraid. I wanted to put the iPod down, but a few more questions came in. But that's good. Please do continue to get involved. That's what this interactive format is all about. Someone writes, on 3D PDFs, can you go into the details of the step integration? Can I just open a step file in Adobe Reader using OpenWidth?
Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. The step integration looks like this. Today, in a 3D PDF document, you either have a PLC or a 3D data structure. Those are the two formats that the PDF, well, supported by PDF as batch standard, and at the moment in ISO, we're working on an additional data stream, that AP242, to be embedded so that you are able to integrate a step file in the PDF file. What you will definitely be able to do, well, I'm 90% sure that will work. An Accurate Professional, that means the commercial variant of Adobe. There it will be possible to embed the step file in the PDF, save the PDF, and then it can only be read by Adobe Reader.
Thank you. And the last question, I assume, I'm going to read it out because I'm not sure I completely understand the content, lots of words. I'm sure you'll have no difficulty though. Just to clarify on 3D PDFs, is the content collaboration space a light TDM, or does this approach not contradict the idea of a digital shadow? I'm thinking here of a single point of truth.
Our content collaboration space is a view of your data. It's just like a PDF file, a view of your data, a contact collaboration portal is a view of your data as well. The data are never generated manually. They're always going to be generated fully automatically. That means we don't generate new information silos. We only take data which are already there anyway. We link these data in a different way and present these data in our portals.
So there you have your answer. And now we've really answered all the questions. Thank you for your questions. Thank you as well to our speakers here in the studio and the recorded video as well. It all worked wonderfully. You might like to hear a little bit more from Mr. Traumond and his colleagues. If so, you can attend the upcoming live session, which lasts for 60 minutes. You will now see the link on your screen. You can click here to be transferred to the team session and continue to discuss. Beyond that, this session and the other two are being recorded. They will be made available to you with English subtitles online. This means you can watch the whole thing again or share it with colleagues. And today we have a third session for you, as I already mentioned, but you do have time for lunch now. The third session starts at 2 p.m. and finishes at 3:30. The topic of that session is Product Suite OpenPDM. See you then, enjoy your lunch, and thank you for logging on.